Well, thank you very much for coming. I'm sure some of you were here for the wonderful screening last night of Floating Weeds, and I know I'm looking forward to the screenings today of Rashomon and the Rickshaw Man. I was going through some notes, reading about Miyagawa. I always thought of Miyagawa Kazuo in terms of his work for other directors. And so, I think I'm just as much at fault as so many of us as always thinking in terms of directors, directors, directors. And so this has been a really good opportunity to kind of jolt myself out of that perspective, even though I knew him and heard him talk about his work firsthand. So in preparation, I started by reading his autobiography, which was really a wonderful experience. He wrote very much like he spoke. He was always very enthusiastic, and there are some videos online if you'd like to take a look at him. In one of them, he actually takes that scroll and is unwinding it as he explains how he used it very enthusiastically. It's a wonderful thing to watch. So what I thought about were three main areas we might talk about, and we might actually jump around and maybe some things not get to at all. But one is what, for example, a series like this, what kind of opportunities a series like this gives to us, to look back, to think. But also to look forward with a new perspective. So what can we look for? What can we take away? There are lots of films that I haven't seen, but already just from the creative programming, I've been able to make some connections that I would not have been able to otherwise. I also thought we might ask Mr. Miyajima and Mr. Miyagawa about the restorations, what background went into that process, what led to this wonderful series. Second, I thought about talking about the things that defined Kazuo Miyagawa. If you read about him, it's always noted that he was born in Kyoto. I think this was an important part of his work because it put him in a milieu of a filmmaking community that later influenced him and provided him with connections. He also, much is made of his study of sumie during his childhood, influencing his work. And also his, the chronology, the way he intersects with technological developments in Japanese film history, the change from silent to sound. He writes that the change from black and white to color for him as a cameraman dealing with light and color was a big shock to him. Also Miyagawa Kazuo as a craftsman, someone who wanted from very early on to develop his own style. And we know that he was very innovative. Particularly, it's always noted that he invented a technique that's still used today, the bleach bypass process, where, or gin no koshi in Japanese, where the black and white silver halides are retained in film so that the colors are muted in the final film. And then connected to craft, I thought we might talk about some of the people he worked with. He worked with very famous directors, but he also worked with some very unusual people. At lunch, we were talking about a few of the set people that he worked with who are maybe lesser known, but also contributed greatly to the Dai classical films of the period he worked in. And then finally, I thought we might ask Mr. Miyajima and Mr. Miyagawa what kinds of notable films there might be that we should look for. If there's any films that they would have liked to have included but couldn't. Miyagawa made over a period of 60 plus years, 130, we were kind of debating this, but 133 4 or 5, somewhere around there, over a period of 60 years. And we're seeing 27, which is still amazing, but that is just 1/5 of his entire output. So we can just only imagine the incredible body of work that this man did. I think that pretty much covers it, just for a kind of outline. And so I thought today, to start out, maybe I could ask first what prompted the series, the restorations, and we can take it from there.
今僕が70歳で彼が76になって、この2人が今修復の監修に携わってるんですが、彼はフィルムの経験者です。僕は全くないんですが、この後フィルムを例えば修復しようと思った時、あと10年後どれだけフィルムを触った人がいるのかって考え出すと、やらざるを得なかったっていうのが本当のところです。
So today I am 70 years old, and then Mr. Miyajima next to me is at this point 76 years old, and both of us were part of the restoration. We supervised the restoration for some of the restored films. And so Miyajima-san was a man who worked in the film industry and who worked with film itself. I had no relation to film. However, through these restorations, when I think about it, 10 years from now, I wonder how many people can claim to have worked with film. And so to think about that, we both felt very compelled to need to work on these restorations.
宮島です。よろしくお願いします。僕、一番恐れたことがあります。
So my name is Miyajima.
すごい名作を作っていながら、フィルム自身もう70年も経ったようなフィルムで、そのフィルムはナイトレートフィルムって言って燃えちゃうフィルムで、日本にオリジナル、宮川さんが撮ったオリジナルなんかもうないんです。それをいかにして見てもらえるようになるかということで、非常に神経を使って修復したと思っています。
So in working on these restorations, there's one thing that I really feared the most, and basically the fact that many of the films were made almost 70 years ago on nitrate film and therefore flammable. Many of the original films that Kazuo Miyagawa worked on do not exist anymore. So I had to really be sensitive and think about how can we actually show these films true to its original intent and how they were made.
今宮島さんがおっしゃった通り、フィルムも寿命に来てます。でこのあとフィルムを残そうという作業自体、宮島さんがギリギリ宮川和夫とお仕事をなさったフィルム時代の監督です。で僕は日常の宮川和夫を見てていろんなことありますが、やっぱりもう限界を超えてます、フィルムが。で我が家に残ってる資料も、実はカット切りって言いまして、フィルムがいっぱい、オリジナルのネガが残ってるんですが、もう腐ってます。どうしようもないです。これは冷蔵庫入れようが何しようがもうダメでしょうね。でこれはやっぱりそのことを見たときに、これはなんとかお役に立てんじゃないかと思って、今回宮島さんにも一緒にやらせてくださいとお願いした次第です。
And so, as Miyajima-san was saying, the films themselves are getting quite old, and there's really a need to preserve them. And Miyajima-san is possibly one of the last people who remembers what it was like to work in film and with Kazuo Miyagawa specifically. And I myself is somebody who knew Miyagawa personally at a very personal level. And actually at my house, we have these things called kattojiri, which are sort of leftover frames of film that which are original negatives that Kazuo Miyagawa took, and many of which have already deteriorated at my place. Even if I were to put it in a fridge at this point, they're irreparable at this point. And so thinking about all these things, I was thinking, how can I help? And therefore, I went to Mr. Miyajima and asked that how I can offer my services and help with this restoration.
それと、ここでもう一つ重要なことはレストレーションをやる修復のチームの問題が一番大きいと思います。でこれが、正直なところ言うと、デジタルから始めた人たちが修復作業にかかってる。それではちょっと何ともしようがなくっていろいろやってみたんですが、悪口になっちゃうんであんまり言いませんが、幸いなことにここニューヨークに修復できるフィルムからずっと修復作業をやられてる会社があったのが一番やろうとしたきっかけかもしれません。
So also one thing that I find problematic is the restoration teams that are working today themselves, many of whom have only really worked with film and images from a digital medium and not so much from film. And I don't want to go on and badmouth these ideas so much, but I do want to say that luckily for us, there is a restoration that's happening in New York who are very familiar with film and who work with film. And I think that for me was a big reason why I also wanted to be part of this process.
So I'm thinking maybe to jump off from that point of the materiality of film, we know that that was very important to Kazuo Miyagawa. He talked incessantly about how important it was to him that he spent the first 3 years at Nikkatsu. So when he entered the film studios for the first time, I believe he was 18. And he spent 3 years in the film processing lab learning film processing, and he has said that both learning film processing and learning shooting, both of those things really went hand in hand to make him the cameraman that he was. And if he had not had that processing history, that developing knowledge, that chemistry knowledge, he would not have been as good and as successful a cameraman that he was. So choosing the right film stock, knowing how to follow innovations in technology. These kinds of things were very important to him. So I'm wondering if I can ask Mr. Miyajima and Mr. Miyagawa how they saw this manifest in Mr. Miyagawa's work, approach to his films.
先ほど話した、カット尻っていう宮川和夫の残したフィルム、僕は日常に手で触って切ろうが何しようがいいんで触れるんですが、それを見ててある日ネガなんだけど、あれおかしいなと、これから皆さんも見られると思うんですが、ハイキーハイコントラストっていう言い方がこの国で通用するか分かんないけども、というふうな印象私も持ってた。ところが、ネガに残ってる情報は、一番暗い部分は一切潰れないディテールを全部残してる。それから一番特徴的な明るい光の話も皆さんご存知だと思うんだけど、ここの光の部分にもあらゆるデータがちゃんと残ってる。これはディテールをひっくるめてです。でこれはおかしいなと、なんか映画で上映されてるものと全く違うなっていうのがまず一番、 それを分かった後いろんなネガを全部ひっくり返していったんですね。そうするとすごいフルレンジの、僕もデジタルでの写真処理とかやってるんでよく分かるんですが、レンジの幅が異常に広いんです。でこれは宮川の一番フィルム体制の特徴で、おっしゃったように現像書の経験があるがために後の処理で何ができるかっていうのを彼は頭の中にしっかり入ってた。これは一番大きいと思います。
And so I was speaking earlier about the katojiri, or the negatives that are left in our household. And so I very often I touch them, or I get to look at them all the time whenever I want. But one day I found a negative from Rashomon, and I noticed that there's high, and everybody I think here may know that Rashomon is known for its high contrast, high key lighting. However, when I looked at these negatives, I started to see that even the darkest parts or the brightest parts actually have a lot of detail. A lot of details exist. Things aren't blown out, or things aren't covered just by darkness. And then I started getting quite puzzled, and I wondered, and then suddenly I pulled out all the other negatives that were around and started looking into them. And I actually do know a little bit about film developing, so I actually use these to really look into how these films were shot. And in looking at these negatives, I realized that Kazuo Miyagawa's working style had this amazing range of being able to contain all these details despite the lighting. And that, I feel like, is very characteristic of Kazuo Miyagawa. And it's because of the fact, as Joanne mentioned, that there's a lot, because of his background in working in the lab, that he was able to have this great range within his frames.
133本という本数ですけど、それを全部白黒カラーというようないろんな映画を宮川さんは撮ってますけど、原点は現像だと僕は思ってます。3年間か4年間ですか、僕は分かりませんけど、現像所にいることによって基礎の映画を学べたと僕は思ってます。つまり理論を分かったと、フィルムというものが分かったということです。それに宮川さんの場合は感性がついてきたということですよね。キャメラマンになって感性が入っちゃったということになります。つまり理論に裏打ちされた感性ということになって、どんな表現したら一番いいだろうかというのが一番先に宮川さんが見つけたんじゃないだろうかと僕は思っています。
And so, as said before, he made 130 films or so, some in black and white, some in color. But I do firmly believe that the origin of Miyagawa's work does go back to the 3 or 4 years spent in the laboratory, as in the developing lab. And that is where he learned the fundamentals of filmmaking. And I believe that there he actually learned almost the theory of filmmaking itself. But what's special about Miyagawa is that in addition to the theory, he also had the sensibility and the expressiveness that he had innately. And so therefore he had the theory in front of him that was backed up by his expressiveness that really helped to create his work.
理論なくして僕は映画は撮れないと思っています。今ボタンを押したらみんな絵は撮れます。でもどないして撮れるか、どのように思いで色を作るかとかっていうのを考えないで機械任せになっちゃいますけど、でも宮川さんの場合はそれがフィルムをよくよく勉強して、それがどのようにしたらどのような発色で出てくるかというのはそれを作品に入れたと僕は思ってます。
I'm a firm believer that you really can't create a good film without having some theory with you. And these days, with one press of a button, you can take an image. However, a lot of people today tend to rely on just the mechanical process, but without thinking about the thoughts and the heart that goes into filmmaking itself. And I really believe that film film needs to be really studied and have that theory in order to, and that actually does show in the film that you make.
私の方からちょっと言いたいんですが、今宮島さんが理論っておっしゃいましたけど、宮川和夫は僕は理論持ってないと思ってます。というのは体で覚えただけの話だと思うんです。これがものすごく重要だと思います。論理だったら何も考えてなかったと思いますんで。
いいですか。ちょっと取りますよ。
ちょっと待って、一回、So I have something to say in relation to what Miyajima-san said. I want to say that actually Miyagawa had not much theory. What he did learn was in fact learned through the body and through the physicality of actually learning through the body. And therefore I want to say that he is not a theoretical person. But Miyajima-san has something to say back.
ここでいう理論と言いましたけど、知識なんですよ。知ること。僕たちは理論といったら科学式とかいろんなことできちっとやってるけど、体験で知識を得てたということなんですよ。知識もないもんが映画なんか撮れないということなんですよ。
So I did say theory, but what I meant by theory really is the knowledge. So he learned a lot, he gained a lot of knowledge through experience, and that knowing, and when I say theory, I don't mean equations or the theoretical ideas, rather I'm talking about the knowledge you gain through the things that you experience.
So I think I might be able to bring the theory and the no theory together. I was thinking of when we're talking about the lab and working in the lab, and one thing that I noticed when I was reading Miyagawa's biography was he talked about how he would try absolutely anything. He was known as roller skating with the camera. He would try to he would break bottles and shoot through the bottoms of a bottle. And he also did something which I didn't quite understand, and maybe Mr. Miyajima can understand it better, but he would also put soy sauce in the bottom of the bottle, and the soy sauce would drip down, and that would act as like a filter or a lens. So this is theory in a way, right? You're finding ways you're experimenting with ideas, and yet you are learning on the run. You're learning on the fly, and I'll let them respond to that. But then I would like to continue with what Mr. Miyagawa brought up with learning with the body, because Miyagawa-sensei very often referred to how important it was that his body work in one with the camera. He talked about dancing with the camera. He talked about moving with the camera, that, the camera was an extension of his body. And if it wasn't, if you couldn't form that relationship with the machine, then you couldn't express the expressive work that you needed to do with that machine.
いいですか。これは皆さんに言って宮川和夫のイメージがいろいろあると思うんだけども、僕が普段家で言われてたことしか言えないんで言いますが、何をやるのも考える前に手を出せっていう話でした。で、やってみて、いやそれ失敗するんじゃないと思っても、思いついた限りは絶対最後までやれと。で、なんでそこまでやるのって言ったら、それは経験として残るだろう、次にも使えるという教え方を宮川和夫からは僕はされました。いまだにそれに近いことをやってますが、これがやっぱり映画の世界に入るといろいろ尾ひれがついてて広がってしまってるんですが、彼は何でもとにかく手をつけてます。 あらゆることに手を出すし、現場ではその結果を持っていってるだけの話で、それ以前に彼はいろんなことをやろうとしてましたし、さっきもスケートの話が出たけど、僕なんかも小さい時にアイススケート連れて行かれて、なんでこの親父スケート滑れるんだろうと思ったぐらいだし。
So everybody here might have their own image of who Kazuo Miyagawa is, and I'm sort of speaking from the things that I remember him telling me at home. And one thing that he often told me is that you should always just try, do whatever, before you even think about it, just but take your hand out and do it. So don't worry about failing and do it, but once you start doing it, see it through. This is something that he often said to me, and I think it's the attitude that he took on both at home and probably at his work as well. And there's some sense of exaggeration that goes on in the film industry of people talking. Yet I do want to say that he is known to have done so much and tried so many new things. And I actually remember as a young kid, as Joanne said, I remember being taken ice skating with my father, and I wondered, how did he learn how to skate? And so I think it has that relates to what Joanne was saying earlier on.
Can you help us out with the possibility that he used the bottom of a bottle with some soy sauce in it?
日本はすごく貧しくて知識がなかった時代があります。疑似焼けって知っていますか？つまり昼間に夜を撮る。アメリカ映画なんかでもたくさんどないして撮ったんだろうということです。その時に誰か宮川さん聞いたんだろう。ガンマというフィルターがあります。
So there was a time in Japan where a lot of people were poor and there was not much knowledge to sort of lean on. And there's this thing called day for night that's used in film where you shoot something during the night. Where it's actually the day, but it's actually night. And so Miyagawa must have wondered, how did they do that? And I think Miyagawa actually learned something from somebody, which is.
ガンマというフィルターどんなんですかと聞いたら、ビール瓶の赤茶けた暗いものだと聞くと、それだったら何があるだろう。ガラスとガラスの間に醤油を入れると、醤油って色分かりますか？はい。醤油を入れた。そして撮影してみたら空が暗く見えた。これがガラスビール瓶という発想につながってきたわけですよね。そして昼間に夜に見せるような撮影方法を見つけたという。
And so what he learned is that people used gamma filters. And when he asked, what are gamma filters like? Somebody told him that, it's like a beer bottle where it's the glass is reddish brown. And so he thought, okay, well, so that's like putting a little bit of soy sauce in between glass and you can get a similar color. And then so he tried to shoot using that as a filter and realized that the sky looked darker. And so he realized, okay, so this is how you do it. And that's how he made the sky look darker.
その代わりガラスに挟んでるもんだから長い時間やったら醤油が垂れてきて色が違ってきたということも聞いてます。
Except, because it's soy sauce that's in between the glass, as time went on, I've heard stories of the soy sauce starting to drip and the colors starting to change.
So this handcrafted approach to making films, I think, is very important. Miyagawa also wrote in his autobiography that when they made the film that we're going to see tonight, The Rickshaw Man, in 1943, he feels that they were able to, at a time when there was not a lot of resources, really recreate the handcrafted beauty of silent film, the kind of carefully constructed beauty of silent film with that particular film. And I think that's absolutely true. I've only seen bits and pieces of it, so I'm looking forward to seeing it today. But I thought I'd like to ask Mr. Miyajima and Mr. Miyagawa to respond to that I believe this handcrafted nature of, taking your time, approaching things carefully, was very important to Mr. Miyagawa. He often said that, to make a really good film, you really needed to take time to work out all of the details, particularly considering that this was a collaborative art, and even just working out a relationship with who you were going to be working with, that took time, and that was an important part of the filmmaking process.
宮川和夫は後で京都の話も出てきちゃうんだけど、言ってみるとニューヨークでいうと、ヒクスアベニューの48かぐらいの生まれなんです。で大都会で生まれてて、僕で、3代都会育ちです。そうすると都会育ちの人って人に対して愛想よくやるんですね。でこれが、人とのコミュニケーション、要するに撮影所の中でのコミュニケーションに非常に役に立ったと思います。で、騙されることも多かったとは思うんだけども、でも彼はもう生まれた時から人とのコミュニケーションがしっかりできててフレンドリーだったと思います。後々もそうです。で悪口言ってた人は業界の人はいるかもしれないけど、映画業界の人に悪口言う人はほとんどいませんでした。
I keep bringing up Kyoto, but so Kazuo Miyagawa was born in Kyoto, and we can go to these stories later as well. But if I were to say where he's born in Kyoto, it's sort of like 48th Street in New York. So that he's born in the 48th Street, midtownish of New York. So he was born in a big city, basically. And I myself include, I'm a third generation of being raised in a big city. And I think there's something about people raised in a big city who's you grew up around so many people that you grew up friendly and knowing how to communicate with people. And so I think my father was always very good at that. You sometimes get tricked because of all the communicating that you do, but you still always had that personable characteristic. And I think there are people who probably have negative things to say about my father as well, but I think in the film industry I generally hear good things.
無法末の一生といったら力車マンですよね、こっちの言葉で。今から75年前の作品なんです。これが宮川和夫の原点。この後この作品をやったおかげで羅生門、右月物語、三笑太夫というように続いていくんだろうと思います。これが僕は今今日見ていただくのはまだアーカイブされてない昔のフィルムから撮ってるんで非常に見づらいと思います。でも宮川和夫を作ったのはこれがこの作品だと思ってます。なぜなら彼はさっきも言ったように現像書からできた。この現像知識がなかったらこの作品はできなかっただろうと思ってます。非常に繊細なことをやってます。僕らではもしこれをあなたお金あげるから何でもやってごらん、これを真似てごらんって言って僕にはできません。そういう繊細なことをやってます。というのはすぐそこに勧進帳というのを置いてあります。宮川さんが自身がそれを撮影したのが見てください。こんなことを全部手でやってたんだ、アナログでやってたんだというのを見てもらいたいと思っています。
So the Rickshaw Man, which was made 75 years ago, this film, I believe, is Kazuo Miyagawa's origin, and that through this, he managed to make films such as Rashomon, Ugetsu, Sancho the Bailiff, and the list goes on. But the Rickshaw Man that you're going to see today, the print is before it has been restored, so there may be certain things that's difficult to actually see. However, this really is an origin film for his work, and it is what created Kazuo Miyagawa. And again, as we spoke earlier, his background has also been in the development lab. And there was no way he could have made a film like this without having that kind of knowledge and to have been able to make a work that is so incredibly detailed, as you will be able to see later. If I was given all the money and resources and told to recreate what he did, there's no way I could do this because I just don't have the knowledge that he did. And so if you can spend some time later looking at the kanjincho, the scroll over there, on how he actually planned these scenes in the Rickshaw Man, you'll see that all of these details were made and that it was done by analog, by hand, and that he had taken these painstaking details to plan these scenes out. And I really hope you go see that artifact out there.
今そこにある勧進帳なんですが、今映像に関わっている人は階層にこういうふうに指示が書いてあるんでレイヤーというふうに考えるんですね。ところがあれは一本のフィルムを巻き戻したり前にしたり後ろにしたりしながら全部の絵を一本のネガフィルムに焼いてる撮影したっていうことを一つ。
So one thing that I want to note about the kanjincho, the planning scroll out there, is that when people today might see it and think that each thing that's written up there indicates a layer of images, but what happened actually is that Kazuo Miyagawa shot everything on one film strip, on one film negative, and basically re-exposed the different shots on that same negative. And so he rewound the film or fast-forwarded the film and just continued to use that one film strip. And so it's not layers you're seeing, but it's actually particular shots on that one film.
結局何層
4層。勧進帳といいますと、要するにワンカットずっと続いたもん中、それが224フィート2分30秒の間の作品なんです。それがワンカットになってます。それが1本がワンシーンになってます。ショットの数が46あります。それを全部こっちを取ったりこっちを取ったり20、30、40までダブらしてみたり絵をダブらしたり見たりということをやってます。
So on the kanjincho, you'll see that the shot that was planned out was 224 feet long film, and that amounts to about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And as you watch it, you see it as one cut, and it comes out as one scene. But in that one scene, it includes 46 individual shots. And so what happens is that he's also overlaying some of these shots, and at most, there's actually 4 exposures going on in this one moment.
それを半年かけてワンショットを撮ってます。ワンカットを撮ってます。
And he took almost half a year, basically, to create that one scene, that one shot.
それともう一つ。
So I think I'd like to go back to what Mr. Miyajima said about this Rickshaw Man being an origin film for Professor Miyagawa. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I know the light meters were beginning to be used in the 1930s, but people usually refer to Rashomon as the first time Miyagawa used a light meter, which would mean that he was doing this complex process without a light meter.
実際にその時代 アナログの目だけで判断してました。
And so, yes, that's true. So back then, he really made the decisions just using the analog thing, which is his eyes.
非常に僕たちにとっては不可能な感じなんですよね。ただ宮川さんがここにはモノトーンというこういうものがあります。これはさっき言ったように暗く見えるようになってる。これで見えなかったら映らないということなんですよね。だからこれを覗きながら映るか映らないかというのを判断して絞りを決めてたということ。
And so this is something, what he did today, I think, is almost unthinkable. But what he did use, in fact, is this, what I call the monotone that I have that Kazuo Miyagawa actually gave me. This helps when he looks through that filter, he's able to see what can be exposed, what is bright enough to be seen on film by using it. And so that was something that he used in order to decide what kind of aperture size to use.
僕は1966年から宮川さんとずっと一緒に仕事をしてたんですけど、その時代でもその癖は残ってました。ファインダーの腰にこうして覗いちゃう。やってましたから。
So I had been working with Kazuo Miyagawa since 1966, and even once there was the technology, he just still, by habit, was doing what I was just doing right now all the time.
So he said that he really learned so much from Hiroshi Inagaki, and one of the things that he also learned, I mean, we usually think of Rashomon as Miyagawa's first film, but he had already made, I think, 100 films by the time he made Rashomon, I believe. It was his 27th year as a cameraman. So if you do have the opportunity to see the Rickshaw Man tonight, one of the things I noticed is that the film, for example, I mean, you'll see, it's almost like a deja vu. You'll see little bits of other techniques that come out in films that Miyagawa later shoots for people like Mizoguchi and even for Rashomon. So I wonder if, for example, one of the reasons why Kurosawa chose Miyagawa to shoot Rashomon is the very dynamism that's in the camera work for the Rickshaw Man, because he used, Miyagawa used a lot of rails for a lot of tracks for the shooting. The camera's moving incessantly because it's the life, the Japanese title of the film is The Life of a Rickshaw Man. There's a lot of passage of time that's invoked through dissolve scenes. So again, you get this real dynamism. And then with the very first shot of the film, you have a kind of conceit where the camera sort of drops down into the small town, which is something that to me is very evocative of the beginning of the film Ugetsu. So I do feel that a lot of things that Miyagawa later develops with other directors begin with this film, Muhamatsu, The Life of Muhamatsu, The Life of the Rickshaw Man, sorry.
まさにその通りだと思う。だから僕はそれが原点になってるって、羅生門でも同じようなことをやってますし、雨月物語、三章太夫、全部無法松の一生を思い起こさせるものがありますよね。
Yeah, I think that's entirely true. When you see his later films, such as Ugetsu and Sancho the Bailiff, that might be better known, when you look at the Rickshaw Man, you really see that he's been doing all these things that he does later on.
Yeah, so this is a good place, I think, to maybe open it up to questions that you might have for Mr. Miyajima and Mr. Miyagawa.
And there's a mic coming around too, so please raise your hand.
Hi, thank you so much for the series. I love it. So my question is just like in regards to Mr. Miyagawa's collaboration with other directors. How did their working relationship work? Did Miyagawa decide on the lighting and the directors, the shots, and who did the storyboards, and like how did the relationship work, the collaborative relationship?
おそらくいろんな監督といつも宮川さんは喋ってはるんですけど、監督より勉強しろよというんです。で監督が思ってた以上のものを絵にしとけば絶対喜ぶに違いないよと言って。
So I believe that Kazuo Miyagawa is always talking to very different directors all the time. But what he always said was that you should always study more than the director. And so that if you can create an image that's even better than what the director had imagined, then the director is always going to be happy.
非常に単純な言葉で申し訳ないんですけど、それだけ知識を監督以上に知識を持ってたということなんだろうと思います。
To sort of simplify this, I think it really boils down to the fact that that's just how much knowledge that this man had, this extraordinary amount that he managed to have. Another question?
Oops.
Question, Mr. Miyajima, when you were introducing Rickshaw Man at the Museum of Modern Art, you were telling us how the film had been cut twice by the Japanese during the war and then by the American occupation afterwards. Do you know how it was cut and what we did not get to see? And in particular, the ending of the film. There are a number of very brief clips, and they looked a little bit too elaborate to have just been thrown in there. That I was wondering if they had been part of the part of more extended sequences, which were then cut and added at that point. Thank you.
はい、もっと無法松の一生というのを皆さんにお話ししなきゃいけない。つまりこの前さっき無法松の一生は75年前の作品だと言いました。
So regarding the Rickshaw Man, there's something I must tell you. As I said, the film is a film that was made 75 years ago.
日本はその頃戦争中でした。太平洋戦争中でした。軍部が強くて軍に関係のない軍を貶めるようなものは全部カットされました。
So back then, Japan was still at war, and so back then, anything that didn't put the army in a good light, or didn't help the army, or didn't relate to the army, was often cut.
それで一番大事な箇所をカットされちゃったわけなんですよね。10分ちょっとありました。
So actually, one of the most important parts of the film, about 10 minutes of it was cut.
それから戦争が終わりました。またこれをもう一回皆さんに見せようという。その時に日本は連合国の戦争は敗戦の国でしたから GHQ によってまたカットされちゃったんです。
So
そ
then,
の2つの国にカットされたから妙な絵が残っているということになってくるんですよね。
so then after the war, there was a decision to rescreen this film. But then after the war, Japan was occupied. And then for the GHQ, there was actually another cut that happened. And therefore, what's left with us today is this quite strange resulting film.
軍国主義でカットされ、自由主義でカットされ、この無法末の一生っていうのは非常に数奇な運命を持ったフィルムだと僕は思ってます。それでいて見てもらって感動してもらえるというのは非常に嬉しく思っています。本来ならば完全な映画を皆さんに見てもらって喜んでもらえるだろうと思ってるんだけど、そのようなことで随分切られています。また GHQ が切ったのが3分ぐらいで、日本軍が切ったのが、10分、そして監督が気兼ねして切ったのが1分ぐらいだから、変なとこで変な絵が出る可能性があります。またさっきも言ったように40でも30でワンシーンワンカットで撮ったりしたとこなんかでも大事な絵はカットされました。だからつなぎがちょっとおかしくなっていることも確かです。
And so this film went through this very strange fate of having been censored and cut under imperialism, and then later under democracy as well. But yet, when we showed it the other day, and people today are still very moved by the film, and that actually does make me very happy. I do think that maybe being able to show the full film in its completeness would have moved us even more, but it's still wonderful that people are so moved by it despite all these cuts that have been made. And I do want to point out that because of these cuts, there are these strange segments and moments where things don't quite align or flow quite properly. But I think it's great that people can still enjoy this.
よろしかったかな、その質問で。
Thank you. This has been a wonderful. This has been a wonderful experience listening to you guys talk about Miyagawa and his importance. I have an observation to make. One is that Joseph von Sternberg started out similarly to Miyagawa in that he too worked the first years of his film career in a film processing lab in Fort Lee, New Jersey. And together you can imagine that these are two of the most textured, multi-layered directors in film history. I mean, von Sternberg's mise-en-scene was just extraordinary, and similar with Miyagawa. So that's just a comment. The question is, it sounds like for Rickshaw Man, Miyagawa was given much, much greater authorial control over the production of this film. Something, I don't know if it's right, but something that goes well beyond, a DP or cameraman level. Is that in fact correct? I mean, was was his involvement in that production amounting to a directorial kind of control?
間違いないと思います。僕その頃1歳でしたから本当のことは分かりませんけどでもこんだけもちろん素晴らしい監督であることは間違いないです。その証拠に15年後に全く同じようにその監督は無法末の一生という映画を撮ってベネチアで賞を取ってます。
And so I think that's completely true. I think he did go above and beyond and actually did almost more work than the director. But then again, I was 1 year old when this happened, so there's a lot of things that I'm not entirely sure about. That said, I do want to say that the director himself is, of course, a wonderful director. And in fact, 15 years after making the first Rickshaw Man, he actually remade the film, and the film did win at Venice Film Festival.
Gentlemen, hi, it's Steve Globus. Thank you for coming over here from Tokyo and participating. Last night, Miyajima, you said that only in New York could this the series could be produced and screened. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that, that climate both in Tokyo and here, or Japan and here.
昨日喋ったことということですけど、今日本では感情をあまり出さないことになっている。僕驚いたのは昨日映画を見て皆さんお帰りになっている時、それからモマでの映画を終わって帰れる時、みんな喜んでもらうのを体で発散してはるということがよく目の前で喜んでもらえるっていうのが、もう僕にとっては初めての経験なんです。そんだけ感激してもらえる。今東京で映画をやって帰るときに「ああよかった」とかって誰も言わないでスーッと帰っちゃう。
So there's something that I feel in Japan happens recently is that people are not as emotive. And after the film last night and also after the screenings at MoMA, I could see that people going home were showing just how moved they were, showing just how happy they were with their bodies. And for me, that made me so happy. And it was almost the first experience that I had where I could actually really see that in the people coming out and being moved by it. And I think it's very rare in Japan these days to be able to see that kind of reaction in the same way.
その感動が僕に直接伝わってきて、ニューヨークの皆さんが見てもらえるって嬉しいという言葉になっちゃったわけです。
And so when I said I was so happy last night, it was because I was really moved by just how moved everybody seemed to be from the films.
いや、でも25本も続けて見るっていうことはありません。
Perhaps, however, to be able to see 25 films straight through it just never really happens.
あれここで宮川が生きてる時は何本？
その時は25本
25本やってますよ。
でも今回は27。
日本ではそんなが。
あ、日本はね。
So Ichiro Miyagawa was saying that when my father was alive, actually Japan Society did do a 25-film series of Kazuo Miyagawa's work, 1981.
Has there been, or are there plans for a retrospective in Japan?
まあないでしょ。
I highly doubt that. Maybe last question.
I was wondering, is this working? Okay, I get this. It seems to me that Miyagawa must have been a very flexible person to work with such varied directors. But I wonder if you could also talk about any stylistic ideas or cinematic concepts that were characteristic of his work that went through the life of his work or developed over time that you would claim as his. Thank you.
Thank you. 僕の方が先だね、それは。ここ、4日間、5日間か。で、宮島さんともいろいろ話してて、宮川和夫の、一番特徴は、先ほどから僕が個人的に話していることに、個人的に教えられたこと、僕自身が家族として、そこに、ひょっとしたら本質があるんではないかっていうお話をここ3、4日ぐらいやってます。それは普段の生活に相当あったように思います。ただし、宮川和夫は年間ひどい時で20本近く撮影してましたから、20本ないか15本ぐらい、そうだよね、ぐらいしてましたんで、家にはいませんでしたけどね。
So in the last 4 or 5 days that I've spent with Miyajima-san here in New York, we were sort of discussing about Kazuo Miyagawa and his personality and the certain things that I learned about him through living with him as a family member. And we're sort of wondering whether something that I learned at home actually presents something that's quite essential to Kazuo Miyagawa. But then again, I have to say that at his busiest times, he was shooting almost 15 films a year. So oftentimes he actually wasn't home a lot.
非常に難しいんですけど、さっき言ったように監督よりも上の絵を撮る、つまり本によってシナリオによってものを描き方を変えてるということなんですよね。じゃあどれが特徴かといったら全部変えてるんですよ。物語の性質から。
Well, I think that question, it is really difficult to pinpoint what it actually is. But as I said earlier, he always studied more than a director. He strived to know more than the director. And so therefore, he really studied the script as well. So would really try to understand the nature of the script. And therefore, his characteristics would also change to meet what the scripts were trying to show.
そのことで一言なんですが、撮影の現場でどういう発言してたか知りませんが、我が家では宮川町って言われたらものすごく怒りましたね。要するに一つのスタイルにはまることを本当に嫌ってた人です。でそれはもう痛いほど分かりました。で家帰って爆発するんですよ。それただしそのオーダーがあることで彼は生活できてたんだけども、やっぱりそのジレンマはものすごく大きかったと思います。
So one word that I want to add, and I don't know what he actually said on set and locations, but Miyagawa as the man at home was somebody who would actually get quite angry pretty often, was quite scolding. I think he really didn't like to be pegged as this person who was good at this one thing. And so there was sort of this release that he did at home. And so he was releasing that kind of the pressure that he was feeling at home in that way. But then again, by being so good at this one thing, he was able to sustain his lifestyle and his life. Great. Well, I'm just gonna. Cool. Okay, one more thing.
ごめん、僕ばっかりで恥ずかしい。宮川和夫の父親っていうのが、リクシャマンの親分でした。これはね、今回も見てて、そういう理解もちゃんと本人もあったようです。車引きって言ってその人たちを束ねる車夫の親分が僕のおじいさんです。
So I just want to add that Kazuo Miyagawa's father, who is my grandfather, was actually somebody who worked with Rickshaw Man. He owned a garage, sort of a garage, or he was the one who brought all the rickshaw men together and was sort of the leader of the troops. So he knew a lot about it. Cool. Well, thank you very much, everybody.